Welcome to Fraser Mac Gaming, I'm Fraser Mac. We usually get an indie highlights presentation around this time of year due to Gamescom going on in Cologne, Germany, and this year is no different. The only difference is it's been rebranded as Indie World. It promised a lot, there was a lot of rumours, there was a lot of talk about Xbox exclusives, and a lot of talk about some fantastic games coming to Switch that we've all been begging for some time now. We ended up getting 29 games. They weren't all new, some were released in a sizzle reel that we already had some details on, but there were a lot of games, a lot of variety, and I have to say, some of them were not for me. Some of them are obviously games that have been out on Steam for some time now, so they just made their move over to Switch. It's great to see them come to our system, but I would have liked to have seen some more games that were new and original for Switch owners, but let's get into the games I liked and then go on to the exclusives and all those things we were desperately waiting for. We'll talk about them near the end of the video. The first game that really caught my eye in the presentation was Eastward. It's a mixture of Pixel Games being the dev and Chucklefish being involved in it, I believe, as the publisher. So Eastward is a game that is going to really give you vibes from those 90s sort of SNES style, the top-down kind of pixelated RPGs. It has an interesting story. The world is falling to ruin is the tagline, and the human population is in serious decline. You're a digger and you discover a mysterious girl in a facility deep underground, and essentially you need to try and figure out her story, the actual reasons behind these creatures that have descended upon Earth. You've got lots of interesting aspects to the game. You can play it single player or you can play it as a sort of dual character adventure RPG. There's puzzle solving, there's obviously some dungeons in it. You get to experience John and Sam's journey through the game. It's going to be quite emotional. It looks fantastic. There's some really interesting kind of autumnal colours for me, but it has some really, really lovely pixel art. I think it's going to be a really interesting game, and obviously Chucklefish is really a mark of quality now, so quite excited for this one coming to Switch, and it's due to come out in 2020, so we'll have some time to wait, but I'll be looking forward to updates on that as we get them. Following on from Eastward was a game I was quite surprised to see part of this presentation, and it is Freedom Finger. So I actually picked it up from the Kinda Funny E3 Games showcase, so it's from Wide Right Interactive. It is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. It's got some wonderful voice acting, some very, very well-known people involved in the game. It's also got a very quirky adult humour. I believe it's involved, from Adult Swim, so, it's not your typical game. It is obviously quite quirky, some quite out there, animations. You're essentially playing as this finger that can collect different weapons, and there's lots of different music-driven levels. So it's going to be quite a standout in terms of a shoot 'em up. It's going to be very different. The music is going to be a key part of the game. It looks interesting. I do love shoot 'em ups. I hope the gameplay stands up. It's going to have some bullet hell elements. It's going to be really interesting. It's coming fall 2019. It's due on Steam at the end of September, so hopefully it arrives similar time on Switch. If you watch the channel regularly, then you will know that I'm a fan of Hob, and Torchlight II is coming from Perfect World Entertainment, Panic Button and Runic Games. So they collaborated on Hob, and obviously Torchlight is one of their favourite series, one of the most well-known series anyway. So Torchlight, I've not actually played it before, but Torchlight 2 is coming to Switch. Obviously they made a big play of playing it on the Switch in this kind of cartoon graphic. It looks quite fun, but essentially it's an action RPG. It's obviously been on Steam for some time, since 2012, so it's been out for a while now, but it is a bit of a classic. It's got some fantastic reviews, we're talking 9s, 95% kind of things on Metacritic, so Torchlight 2, it's quite a big get for the Switch. I'm looking forward to checking it out. It has some interesting top-down mechanics, so fans of kind of Diablo type games, and it is releasing September 3rd, so not long to wait for Switch fans. We were just talking about Hob, and there was another game that followed it, Europa, which actually has some interesting elements and similarities with Hob. So again, it's a little bit of a cross between probably Little Big Planet and Hob, and something like Super Mario Galaxy even. There's a planet that's been torn apart and it's now got a death-defying gravity issue, so you need to actually traverse these interesting platform and puzzle elements to try and get to the end of the levels, get to the end of the story. And I think it obviously looks quite cutesy, looks quite fun, has that kind of Little Big Planet aesthetic, looks quite colourful, but it's probably going to have some challenging puzzle elements. There is even some combat of sorts, or some ways you have to actually try and get round different enemies and things like that that will block your path. So it looks quite quirky, it looks quite interesting. very colourful. I think it looks like it could be a lot of fun. A lot of it's going to depend on the gameplay really, and a lot on the controls as well. Europa, you won't have too long to wait. It's due to come out winter 2019, and I'm interested to check it out later when it comes on Switch. The Indie World presentation really had a wide variety of games and presentation styles, I think was interesting. We have really been overloaded a lot of pixel art games, but the Tourist from Shinin Games, it obviously reminds me a lot of 3D Dot Heroes kind of art style. It's that kind of Lego block look, but it has a lot of interesting elements. It seems to be a bit of a mix of Zelda and Shakedown Hawaii, all kinds of different things in there. You've got kind of exploration and elements where you just go into cities. It seems to have a little bit of a mini F-Zero game in there as well, but you have dungeon crawling, you have puzzle solving, you've got to go and see different islands. It has a lot of really different game mechanics here and an interesting art style. Something I kind of, it really drew me in to start with. But you basically arrive in Monument Island, you can go swimming, you can take a dive in the deep sea, you can visit the amusement arcade, you can do some shopping, you can go dancing at the beach, you can go surfing. It looks like there's an awful lot to do. It looks like almost like a kind of life sim crossed with a Zelda game, and all those kind of puzzle mechanics, all those kind of dungeon mechanics. So looks really interesting. It's due to run at 60 frames per second and 1080p. I hope that's obviously docked mode. I doubt it'll be in handheld mode, but it looks cool. The Tourist, it's coming November 2019, so definitely one I'm going to be looking out for. There were some games I was just absolute rock solid choices in terms of putting them in this video, and then there was some where I had to debate, do I include it or not. This next game, Earth Knight, I really didn't know whether to include it or not, but some of including it just because it's so crazy. It genuinely looks like the devs, so it's from Cleversoft, it looks like the devs have designed this game on acid. It looks like a kind of old school 2D platforming game, a bit of a kind of 2D platformer, but it has some crazy, jumping mechanics, running mechanics. It has elements where you think you can see elements of almost Sonic in it, but it's about dragons. It's the dragon apocalypse apparently, and you're a young girl, but sometimes you change and then you become this beardy bald guy. Looks a little bit like me. So not the best looking guy in the world, but you can do some crazy moves. There seems to be a lot of action going on the screen. It looks like something where if you actually know what's going on and get playing, if the mechanics are good, could be fun. It just looks so weird. I had to include it because it's quite visually stunning, it's quite well done, but it does look a bit wacky, a little bit out there, so you never know. This could be a brilliant game or it could just flop, so I've no idea. But Earth Knight is due to come out fall 2019 on Steam, and I'd expect hopefully that it would release on Switch around the same time. So moving on to something slightly more adult and slightly more up my street, and it's very much a game that people have been looking forward to for a while. It is Blasphemous. It's a dark and brutal 2D non-linear platformer apparently. So it was a Kickstarter funded game. It raised well over its target goal and raised over $300,000 on Kickstarter. You can see it has those kind of classic 90s pixel art vibes. It looks fantastic. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting one for fans of games like Dead Cells. It's going to have a lot of violence, a lot of blood. It's definitely a more mature game, but it has an interesting story that's supposed to unfold as you progress through it. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on this. It looks like it'll be a really fun time on Switch. Following on from that, Trine 4. Obviously we've had details on that game for a while as well. It is coming out October 8th, and another game, Northgard, coming out September 26th. The only downside, I'm a little bit up and down about the graphics, but it is a kind of tactics-based game that is getting a physical release, and another one getting a physical release is Sparklight. So it does look very reminiscent of a lot of games we've had on Switch, kind of top-down, pixelated, kind of action-adventure games, but it looks kind of cool. And there were a lot of games in the sizzle reel, but that was not everything we got from Indie World. There was obviously some big games that were rumoured before the actual presentation itself, and the presentation definitely delivered. Fans of first-person shooter games were looked after with the news that Superhot was coming. It was one of the worst-kept secrets along with a few other games, but yep, Superhot teams first-person shooter game that has an interesting time mechanic where time only moves when you move. So yeah, it's got a fairly stripped-down graphical style, but it's quite colourful. I think obviously it's very well reviewed on Steam, had some very good reviews on Metacritic, so if you are a fan of first-person shooters, it looks like it's a quality time. If you like games like Doom and Wolfenstein and Turok, this could be an interesting one. It's not really up my street, but it has an endless mode, a challenge mode, has lots of extras we can delve further into the game. obviously has very stylized graphics, you know, a unique kind of playing style. It's not something for me, but I think a lot of people will be very happy about this and very pleased that it's releasing on Switch. And the good news was it's available today. The news we've all been waiting for, the news I was definitely waiting for, is yes, Devolver Digital and Denatton Games released Hotline Miami Collection on Switch. So yes, it's been on PlayStation for a while now. Hotline Miami, it's a game that obviously just suits the Switch down to the ground. It's obviously very mature, it's quite violent, it's a top-down action game with lots of shooting and obviously interesting gameplay. You know, it's very akin to sort of Ape Out, maybe not as music-driven as Ape Out. The Hotline Miami Collection is obviously one of Devolver Digital's really big, successful games that they've been involved in publishing. It's been waiting for a while to get it on Switch, but we're getting the Hotline Miami Collection, including Game 1 and 2, and it's available today. So you can actually get it on your Switch right now. It costs £22.49 in the UK, and in the US it'll cost $25. The big one though, I've saved the best for last. Yes, the Xbox exclusive we all wanted. It's Ori and the Blind Forest. So yes, Ori is just an absolutely gorgeous game. You know, it's like a classic 2D kind of action platformer. You've got this journey through these magical settings. Look at the graphics are amazing. It's got some puzzle elements. You know, it's an amazing game. It's from Moon Games. Obviously Xbox Game Studios were involved in it. But the link up between Nintendo and Xbox, it's just coming to fruition for Switch owners. Anyone who likes those real challenging platformers with some really colourful graphics, and I think a lot of people on Switch will be liking this. People who like games like Lightfall and Celeste, you know, all those platforming games, you know, you're just going to eat this up. So anyone, obviously, you like the look of Yooka-Laylee, this is obviously a more stylized game. It looks a bit more like Hollow Knight. It just looks fantastic. It's got amazing reviews. I can't wait to get this on my Switch. Will-o'-the-Wisps, I'll be desperate to get that as well at some point, but this will get us going. The only bad thing is we're going to have to wait until the end of September, but Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition is coming to Switch. You'll be able to get it September 27th. I cannot wait. So that's my roundup of the Indie World presentation. It had some fantastic games in there. There was 29 games in total, so that's just a huge presentation. Some of the previews were quite short, obviously, as you can expect. Some of the release dates are obviously sometime in the future, but it's great to see what's coming to Switch. Obviously, there's a lot of games coming from Steam that have been on there for a while, probably similar to other directs, but there were some great games on there I've been really looking forward to. Got some release dates for games. There was obviously some games we were hotly anticipating from the Xbox and from other systems. We got them, obviously the favourites for me, Hotline Miami Collection, Ori and the Blind Forest, so those are the real standouts. But some interesting games I hadn't heard of before. Blasphemous I was aware of, Trine 4, but you know, some other new interesting games like Eastward, etc. that are right up my street, so you know, I'm looking forward to playing them. But that's all the time we've got on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If this is your first time, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the presentation, which games you really thought stood out, if there's any I've not included here, any games you're looking forward to getting yourself. That's all the time we've got for this week though. I'll see you on the next video.